Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our platform at Career Naksha. So, today's webinar, we are going to have the speaker Rohini Midha. Talking about her, Rohini Midha is a dynamic professional with over a decade of experience and has worked on varied projects in the field of education. She has hands on experience in human resources, career counseling, immigration, training, and development. Her forte lies in her people management skills, and her passion to take education to greater height has what led to the creation of the Blessing Consulting Group. She has designed various customized programs to equip the novice beginners with necessary language skills and improve their oratory skills. She has completed an executive program in global business management from IIM Calcutta and holds a degree in Bachelor of Commerce from prestigious Lady Shri Ram College for Women. Okay, handling it to all over our today's speaker, Rohini Midha.
Hi, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to the session. Thank you so much, Rakesh, for introducing me. So, today's session is primarily going to be based on ace that interview process and secure that next dream job of yours. All those people who are a part of the show today, somewhere or the other, you are attempting to get that dream job. You're looking at making the best use of an opportunity. Maybe you're a prospective job aspirant, or you're currently into a job and you're looking at a job switch. So that has got you to the show, or maybe there might be other questions as well. So Rakesh has given you a bit of my exposure. I'll just add on to it. So having worked in the HR industry for about 10 years, I had said this about myself in the introductory interview. I've taken, I don't know, I think 10,000 or a lakh of interviews. I forgot the number actually. There are such details that are evaluated that we possibly don't even imagine. And like I always say, an interview is a marketing strategy where you have to present yourself, you have to package yourself in such a manner that your prospective employer is more than happy to hire you. Having said that, I've also worked in the field of education, and I've taught at MBA colleges, I've taught at schools, education institutes. I'm currently working with government schools and villages and trying to impart education as a CSR initiative. So today's show is going to be, how do you secure that dream job? How is it going to be that we are getting that job? So my primary focus is going to be with your law of attraction. How is it that we can make best use of our resources? So to begin with it, I'd like to show a video which had inspired me. So I always believe that if you imagine something and you believe that you can get it, you can actually achieve it. So on that note, I'll show you a 3 minutes video, and just bear with me, give me a minute. And I'm going to share my screen here. 1 second. Yes.
Let's imagine for a few moments what our life would be like if we could access, let's say, 20% of our brain's capacity.
If you want to have something show up in your life, the kind of person you would like to become, manifest something new into your life, something powerful, whatever it might be, you obviously must first be able to imagine it. Your imagination is able to do all that you ask in proportion to the degree of your attention. So, what kind of attention do you place on your desires? Einstein's most famous quote, one of his most famous observations, he said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere. Make your future dream a present fact by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That which you feel yourself to be, you are. And you are given that which you are. So assume the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of your wish. And your wish must be realized. So live in the feeling of being the one you want to be, and that you shall be. If this assumption about what you would like to become is persisted in until it becomes your dominant feeling, the attainment of your ideal is absolutely inevitable. You must first assume the feeling of a wish fulfilled in all aspects of your life. Don't allow anybody else's opinions. Don't allow what it says on the internet. Don't allow the research. Don't allow what anybody out there tells you is possible or not possible.
96% business owners will never cross $1 million in their business, which is 8
for you. If you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. It will chase after you if you can place into your imagination what it is that you would like to attract and begin to feel it.
Yes. So the moral of the story is you have to imagine. So let's say in my video, I had talked about this before, that from an American Express to a Chambal Fertilizers, I have never failed in an interview. And you know what is the secret for success? Before I actually took the interview, I had imagined that I've got the job. I had actually imagined what would it be like when I walk out of the interview that I've actually secured that job, or how that conversation has been. So I had a list of questions that were prepared by me. I had the possible answers, not that I had rectified those answers, because then if it looks very mugged up, it doesn't come across naturally. But yes, I tried to preempt every possible question that could have been asked to me during an interview process. So that's what I'm going to be harping about today. Today, we're going to talk about what is it that in an interview, what should you prepare before the interview, on the date of the interview, and after the interview. Now, you need to also, so there are going to be a bit of details about how should you be sitting in an interview, how should your hairstyle be, what should you wear, what you should not wear. We'll also be looking at covering up a series of the list of possible questions in another couple of weeks that might just come up again with Career Naksha, or it might come up on my YouTube channel exclusively. So that's yet to be decided. So etiquettes as far as interviews is concerned are also an area that we'd like to explore. However, let's just begin with the presentation. And towards the end of the session, the last 10 minutes, I'd like to take up all questions that you have. And I'd like to know my answers there. So just give me a minute and I'll take you to the presentation. Rakesh, could you share the presentation? Or I have it here with
Ma'am,
me.
can you just add it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a very warm welcome again. I'm going to reiterate the fact that secure that dream job. So please, before we begin, you have to imagine what kind of a job are you looking at. In fact, recently I got a call by this very innocent child stating that I'm just 10th pass. I'm going to use Hindi also. कि मैम मुझे जॉब चाहिए, मेरे अंदर वो स्किल्स नहीं है, आप मेरी हेल्प करेंगे. सो शायद इस प्रेजेंटेशन के बाद अगर वो बच्चा ये शो देख रहा है तो थोड़ा बहुत उसे लगेगा कि उसके क्वेश्चंस कवर अप हो गए. सो दैट्स द टाइटल here: dream it, believe it, and achieve it. So before we begin, get that job on your mind, because your subconscious mind is going to help you getting that job. Please, your subconscious thoughts are very, very important here, because they are the ones that are going to transform the imagination into reality. Now you need to think, अगर आप apple seeds sow कर रहे हैं तो carrot का plant नहीं उगेगा. If you have that slightest doubt when you go for an interview that I might not be able to crack it, you will never crack it. So whenever you enter that room, or whenever you are talking on that telephonic interview, you have to imagine that you've already got the job. and how does it feel? You should have the option of taking it or rejecting it. It should never be the other person. I mean, obviously, the company also has the option of hiring you or not, but you need to be in the driver's seat. At least you need to imagine it. And that's how it is going to be. The interview is a marketing strategy. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware about the marketing concept. आपने अपने आप को इतने अच्छी तरीके से पैकेज करना है. Now, you need to understand it's not that only you need the job. The company needs to hire you as well. They are also looking at a prospective employee who is going to do good to their organization. So may it be your sense of dressing, may it be the way you present yourself during an interview, or your career, your skill sets. How are you? So a very typical question asked by the human resources personnel is, what are your weaknesses? Now, I might be a very emotional person, but I cannot go and tell the interviewer during the interview process that I'm an emotional person and that's my weakness. Look, she or he is going to think that you're not practical. You're bound to cry during your tenure with the organization. So you need to package that very diplomatically and give diplomatically correct answers. We would be taking this up sooner or later. So package yourself. The key word here is going to be packaging. Time for preparation. So let's say the HR gives you a call, has seen your candidature on maybe IIM Jobs, Indeed, Naukri.com, Monster, whatever. So you've got a call. You have been shortlisted. So that's the preliminary screening round. On a telephonic interview, you've got a call and they've asked you to come for the interview. What should your preparation be before you actually go for the interview? The first thing that you need to do is analyze the job. So you need to ask your recruiter or the HR personnel to send you a job description. Like if I was in the recruitment function and somebody wants me to work in the payrolling function, now those two things are absolutely different. So would I be interested in doing just a desk job where I need to do number crunching? Or is it that interviews are of my interest? Or maybe I'd like to do employee engaging events. You might be a marketing personnel and somebody offers you a job which is a combination of marketing and finance. You might not be possibly interested in it. So first thing, you have to get that data. Ask that human resource person to send you the job description. Seek that. Second, research on the company. How do you conduct research on the company? You have to go and see the company's profile on LinkedIn. Do they appear on LinkedIn? Go on to Google reviews and see what their employees state about the organization. I can tell you, during my tenure, I once got, I'm not going to take names here, I got a call from an organization for an interview. And when I went on to the Google reviews and I saw the employees were bad mouthing the organization and said they don't give salary on time, there are employee issues. Now that itself, it talks a lot about the organization. So before I went for the interview, I knew what I was going for. And I was just kind of validation during the interview process that I landed up asking a few questions and taking a decision that I didn't want to work with the organization. So you have to research on the company, maybe on social media. You'll see the kind of people who are working for the organization. You can go and search on LinkedIn. You can search on Instagram, Facebook, read the Google reviews before you go. The next is appropriate clothing. So before I land up for an interview, I need to know what am I going to be wearing for the interview. For boys, you need to be wearing formal shirts. And for women, you can wear salwar suits, saris, western clothes, whatever. Please ensure your clothes are not very bright or striking to the eyes. If you're wearing a white shirt and there is a stain on it, it does not reflect well. Second, for women, if you are going for an interview and your hair are open and they're going all over the place and you are behaving like that Clinic Plus ka ad, baal damke, it's not a modeling assignment here. So your hair have to be neatly tied up with a clutcher. You need to ensure your dress code is absolutely appropriate. And the resume and the reference, very, very important. You need to have a resume which is not more than 2 pages. There are people who make their resumes which are like 6 pages. Now, nobody is going to sit down and read your essay of 6 pages. Nobody is interested in reading your 6 pages achievements and accomplishments. People don't have time nowadays. So they're just going to browse through. And if your resume looks too wordy, they're going to discount you there and then. Salary expectations. Now, it looks very, very cheap if you go ahead and ask the recruiter on the first go, what is the salary that you're offering for this job? If at all they talk about the salary bracket, it's all right. Or else another way to gauge the salary is you go and put on Naukri.com the company's name the designation that they are possibly looking at hiring you, you'll get the salary band that they are offering you. And then you can possibly reiterate and check with the HR person, is this the salary band that you're looking at? Because please try and understand. Imagine you're already at a 25 lakhs per annum CTC, and the person has called you for an interview of 15 lakhs per annum. You don't want to take a dip in the salary. So salary itself, again, is going to be a very, very important thing that is going to be your consideration. All of us are working for money. Nobody works on voluntary basis. यहाँ पे charity के लिए कोई काम नहीं कर रहा है. तो बहुत जरूरी है आप अपना अगर टाइम इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं एक जॉब इंटरव्यू में, आपको क्लियरली ये सारी चीजें पता हो, कंपनी का रोल, कंपनी के बारे में, उनके सैलरी एक्सपेक्टेशंस एंड आपका रेज्यूमे. एब्सोल्युटली. Before the interview, so you have to research on the company. I already talked about this. You have to research about the company. You have to research about the position. You have to practice the commonly asked question. Now, let me tell you, the first and the most important commonly asked question is, tell me something about yourself. And the biggest mistake a lot of candidates do is वो रट्टा मार के आते हैं. My name is Rohini, and Rohini का मतलब ये होता है, I'm very fond of reading books, XYZ, blah, 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 done. And it looks so prepared. It has to flow naturally, despite the fact that you would have rehearsed this at least thousands of times. You cannot sound as if you know it beforehand. And whatever you say in the introduction has to be well rehearsed, and you need to know your resume. So a lot of times I have conducted interviews and I've asked the candidates, what are your hobbies? So the candidate says, I love reading books. And then I ask them, which is the last book that you read? And you're blank. The last book I read is Atomic Habits. And then I asked, okay, so what did you learn out of that book? You don't know anything about it. So please ensure whatever is there on your resume. I might possibly ask a question about what are your hobbies. I like singing. And the next question that you're inviting for yourself is, please sing for us. You have to have very open-ended answers. You have to have very precise answers when you are appearing for that interview. Dress appropriately. Now, anyways, your dress has to be very, very formal. For men, you should not be playing with your, typically I've seen a lot of men while taking the interviews, they're fidgeting with their shirts. A sign of nervousness is you start fidgeting with your collars, or, with your sleeves. It shows that either you're feeling very hot or you're feeling very nervous. You start touching your ears. That body language doesn't work at all. If you are feeling thirsty, please ask for water. Girls start playing with their hair. Oh, yes. No, it's absolutely a no-no. While sitting in an interview, you're not supposed to be doing that. No deep necklines, no plunging necklines. If you're wearing a salwar kameez, ensure that your dupatta is appropriate, tucked up. It should not be that you're taking the interview and the dupatta is falling every now and then and just putting it back into place. No, it doesn't work. Your shoulder distance and your feet distance has to be the same. So while you're sitting, I'm not too sure whether I can show that here. So you need to sit absolutely straight, no slouching on the chair, or you don't go back and say, okay, yes. And you're not supposed to be dancing on the chair as well. Some people are in a habit, they have a pen in their hand and they'll go do tick, 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 and the HR gets ticked off, or the panel is going to get really irritated, thinking that you're a very fidgety person or you don't have the confidence. Get a good night's sleep. I've often had interviews where the candidates are feeling sleepy, and in the middle of the interview, they start yawning. Possibly they had anxiety attacks. They might not be very well prepared for the interview, or they were trying to do a lot of research just one day before. You're not supposed to be doing that. You should have been prepared a couple of days well in advance. Carrying your necessary materials means all your educational documents, your past work experience certificates, all of that has to be there in a file. Please ensure that you have got all your educational documents at least laminated. I've had an instance once that there was this candidate who was trying to show me the degree and spilled water all over that place. Now, look, you can't afford to ruin your documents. So have those appropriately done up there. And very, very important, do not get caught up in Delhi, Mumbai, or Maharashtra traffic or anywhere else. You have to be coming in early for an interview. Coming late for an interview is absolutely a no-no. It just reflects that you don't value time. You are poor at time management. Another popular question that the HR asks you during the interview, so if I'm talking about time, is Will you be stretching and working late hours? Now, look, nobody wants you to stretch and work late hours. They're only trying to check your willingness, that would you be willing to put in those extra hours? Will you be willing to travel? Absolutely a yes. You shouldn't say a no. But yes, you need to ask how frequently is that going to be. Most often, I remember when I was working with Chambal Fertilizers, I was being asked this question, are you willing to travel? And they actually made me travel to Niam, Jaipur, and all the IITs, Roorkee. So my first question was, how frequently am I supposed to travel? So if it is a traveling job every odd day and you're not open with it, so please put that down and just communicate that you're not willing to do that. Okay. Another thing. Okay. So out of my experience, I have figured out often your HR personnel is going to make you wait for the interview. So I remember while I was taking an interview with a very okay, a top-notch company there in Gurgaon, I was called for an interview at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I had about 6 rounds of interviews. I was asked to wait till 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening, where I had to go back to Delhi. The thing that they were trying to check during the interview process is how patient am I. They made me wait for about a couple of hours between each round of interview. They're trying to check your level of patience. If you lose patience, if you just get hyper, oh, I'm supposed to go back, why didn't you tell me about this well in advance, it's going to ruin your entire candidature. So if at all you have an urgent appointment and you need to take time off and go back, you should please clearly communicate that, ma'am, could you let me know how many hours is it going to take? Please be very, very polite during your interview and at the moment you appear for an interview. Another tip while you're taking the interview is you don't have to be very, very soft spoken. I mean, there are times when I'm asking a question and the candidate is so soft spoken. I understand we all have to have that feminine touch, or men are just very loud. You have to have a balance. You can't be just like very loud. It looks rude. You can't be very soft. It just looks that you are not convincing enough. There has to be a proper balance. I have been given feedback so many times. In fact, I think maybe my rate of speech today also is fast. That's the way I speak. You need to have a track of your rate of speech. Are you too fast or are you too slow? There has to be a balance in between. शताब्दी एक्सप्रेस की तरह नहीं बात कर रही है, फिर सामने वाले को कुछ समझ में भी नहीं आएगा. सो आपको एक बहुत अच्छा बैलेंस मेंटेन करना है. आपको धीरे धीरे बोलना है. आपको अपने हर चीज के बारे में तरीके से जवाब देना है. आपकी पढ़ाई हो, आपका experience ho, anything, you have to answer appropriately. A breakfast is very, very important. Often we tend to ignore this part, and I've had instances where the candidate is sitting right in front of me and the stomach comes up with those rumbling, tumbling noises, and we've broken up into splits and everybody started laughing. So ensure that you've had that breakfast, otherwise you will not be able to give in your best. Review your notes. You would have made a lot of notes about the organization. So another tip I'll give you here is, when I used to go for an interview, the first thing I used to do is go on to LinkedIn. Let's say you're going for a job for American Express. I'll go onto LinkedIn and I will type in American Express. पूरी कंपनी का ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चार्ट आ जाता है. You actually get to know who is heading the company, which office, who is working under whom. You know where who falls where. So you already have some ideas. While you're talking in the interview, you can tell your interviewer, so, okay, I researched on LinkedIn and this is what I found. And trust me, they get impressed after they see that you've shown the interest in the organization before coming for the interview, and it works in your favor. So that's something that you should do. Relax and stay calm. So while you're sitting, maybe next time I could record a video and show. You have to be absolutely relaxed. You know, when you clench your fist or you sit like this shows closed formations. You're not open to feedback. Another thing people start doing is they tap their feet. Tuck, 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 tuck. That is nervousness. It shows that you're not calm at all. It just shows anxiety issues ho sakte hain. Then they start asking you behavioral based questions, which is going to be another session. There are motivational questions, there are behavioral questions. HR is going to grill you. If you are lucky, वो 2 मिनट में आपसे सवाल पूछ के चले जाएंगे. But if you're not, they're going to continuously ask you questions and they don't stop. Smile and be friendly. Please don't have that frown. because otherwise people will think that she or he is very cold, and he or she has a lot of attitude, will probably not be a team player. If you join a Tata consultancy service or an American Express or a Google, I've seen people entering that organization and practically, retiring out of that organization because the organization environment is so good. So they don't want to bring in someone who's absolutely cold or will not gel in with their team. You have to look affable, you have to look approachable, you have to look nice and friendly. Who is going to be willing to work with that organization? Turn off your phone. Absolutely. Put it on silent mode. If you think you can't switch it off, it has to be on silent mode or it has to be on D&D. You cannot have during the interview process a ringtone coming up. And another thing, I've heard the worst possible ringtones. So maybe a Punjabi or a Hindi song, which is just not apt during an interview process. So ensure that you have a professional ringtone, even if it rings. Because the ringtone also speaks a lot about you. Be punctual. We've already talked about this. You need to adhere to the time limit. You should not be late for the interview. Even the time during the interview, it has to be well spaced. And that actually is the responsibility of the human resource professional. Follow up after the interview. So I've taken the interview. There's going to be a lot of excitement. There are a lot of nerves that are racking up. You really need to know what happened. Kya tha mera feedback? क्या मुझे जॉब मिली? Have I got the job? But what should you do? Should you just call up the human resource professional and keep on asking कि क्या मुझे job मिल गई? Have you hired? Have you taken that decision? Never show desperation. The moment you show desperation towards getting a job profile, your human resource professional is going to start negotiating. Even if they were supposed to offer you 10 lakhs, now they'll offer you 6 lakh, 7 lakh. Because they'll say, अच्छा इसको तो job की ज़रूरत है. Do not show that desperation or that urgency that you need to get that job. So maybe you could just drop in a casual text that thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. I often say that do not prefer email as a possible channel of communication rather than your mobile phones, because email is more professional. So if you think that you've not talked about any strength during an interview, you can mention that. So if I have to ideally write an email, I'll say, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. Just wanted to follow up on the interview that was conducted on so-and-so date. Ideally, this email has to go within 24 hours of taking an interview. If you think you've forgotten to mention something about your candidature during the interview and you want to reiterate and you want to talk about it, that during the interview, I forgot to mention about this role that I was playing here and so you can mention that in that email. If there is something that you forgot to tell about, possible weakness, maybe let's say you flunked in some examination. So I would be honest enough. I'll even put that on that email, because please try and understand, all good companies today conduct a rigorous background check. If they ever find out something that you did not disclose during the interview process, your candidature stands cancelled there and then. They will not give you a second chance. They will only discount you on the fact, they'll say, this person was hiding, or this person was concealing the information. This person is not of high moral values or integrity. So you could talk about that there as well. So yes, you have to mention any key points. Please remain absolutely professional. No ha he he with the HR person, even if that person is over friendly. At times human resource professionals are trying to gauge your personality. वो आपको check करने की कोशिश करते हैं that is this person crossing that line. You don't have to cross that line. He's not your chaddi. He or she is not your chaddi buddy. Don't start interacting. Do not post on social media, मैंने यहाँ जाके interview लिया. Oh, I am so happy I took this interview and I've got a job. No. For all you know, HR people today are watching your social media. They have so many connects. They might just be following you through a dummy account. They might be watching you through Twitter or Instagram or any other social media platform. If you commit that mistake, if you are harping or talking too much about it, so it just goes against you there as well. So all your communications with the HR people have to be absolutely brief, it has to be absolutely very concise. to the point, limited, just a couple of minutes of conversation, and that's about it. Do not irritate that person, even if he has to hire you. He'll say, thank you so much. It was nice knowing you. And another thing, while you're writing that email, you can say, looking forward to a positive reward from your end. Mention that timeline. So I'd be looking forward to hearing from you within a week or within 15 days. Once you put that 15 days down, it should be only after 15 days that you make another follow-up call. It should not be before 15 minutes that you call up the HR person and say, okay, let me ask you another set of questions. So that's from my side. I intended to take is a few questions that are asked during the interview. So okay, Rakesh, can I bring you back on screen?
Yes, ma'am. You want me
Okay.
to
Do
take
we
more
have any
questions?
questions here from our audience? I'd like to take more
Currently,
questions.
currently, there are no questions.
Okay, anybody, because I'd like to answer more questions than I given more data or because if I give you too much of information today, you won't be able to digest it. Anybody, any questions?
No questions currently, ma'am. Yet still.
No questions?
Yes.
Okay. So let's take up what are the possible questions that you have during your interview round. So like I said, the first question that the HR personnel is going to ask you is, tell me something about yourself. It has to be a very well rehearsed question, should not come across as if it is ratified. Second thing the HR person asks is, where do you see yourself 5 years down the line? Now, 5 years down the line, you really don't know how you're going to predict the future, but you need to have some amount of clarity of thought. Let's say I was a commerce graduate. I did my graduation from Lady Shri Ram, and the first job that the first place that I landed up working was career launcher, because I was a prospective cat aspirant. So when I remember Gautam sir had asked me this question, Rohini, tum 5 saal baad kya karna chahti ho? I had no idea what I'm going to do after 5 years. For me, possibly the next thing was मैंने IIMs जाना, फिर उसके बाद MBA करने के बाद कुछ करना था. But today's generation is supposed to be very well informed. You have to know what are you going to do after 5 years. At least if you don't know that you are going to be a senior vice president or a vice president, you need to know the role that you are possibly planning to take up. So I was absolutely clear from day one that I wanted to get into human resources field. I was not a finance person. I didn't want to get into numbers. So I clearly, very diplomatically said that, sir, I'd probably like to be in a managerial role with the company in the human resources function. So it shows that there is clarity of thought. It is not that an impromptu answer has been given here. And somewhere or the other, I had reflected, please note this, I had reflected the qualities that were suitable for an HR role. So an HR person is supposed to be more approachable, has to be more social, because we need to do a lot of events. We need to connect with employees. We need to ensure that their data is in place. Anything that goes wrong in an organization eventually is going to be the human resources responsibility, because again, we do a lot of document verification and background verification and all of that. So a lot of burden on the HR person's shoulder there. And they actually, not to forget, they are the first one to be sacked in the organization once they're doing cost cutting as well. So please correlate your skills. Another thing that you should specify in your resume is, what are the skills that you possess? If you are good, like I was good at mathematics, so I clearly had stated that I am good at analytical skills. So analytical skills, next thing that comes up to you is, okay, which subjects were your favorite? So I knew my mathematics was good, so I landed up going and saying, sir, my maths was good. What was I inviting? A question on probability or permutation and combination. It's all a chain reaction that happens. You can actually lead the interviewer to ask you questions that you want to answer. So I remember in an interview, I was being asked, like I told you in the interview before, that how open are you to travel? Considering I was living in South Delhi and I was taking an interview for a South Delhi role, I said, I'm okay to travel about 6 to 7 kilometers a day. Even if you send me outstation, I'll be okay to do trips once or twice in a month. I was open and upfront. So they knew the expectation setting that was coming through. You have to be brutally honest but politically correct in an interview. If you commit, no, no, sir, I will travel every day. You send me to Pritampura, 40 kilometers away from my house, I'll be okay. You are inviting trouble for yourself, because the interviewer next time is going to say, acha aapko to hire kiya tha is condition pe, jao get into a traveling job. And women often face problems in traveling jobs because it's not very easy. I'm not saying that there is any bias against men or women, but I've seen women have issues traveling mein ho jata hai, because फिर late nights hota hai, and a lot of things just come up. So if you're okay, please be sure about it. Another question that comes up, especially for women who have been on a sabbatical. Sabbatical is a break that you take in your career. So I have interviewed women with younger children or who have been on a sabbatical. Today, companies are more open to hire women who have had a sabbatical break. 10 years back, people weren't willing to hire women on a sabbatical break. There were challenges in terms of, if you have a child, ये तो काम नहीं कर पाएगी, बच्चा है, till date, somewhere or the other, that perception is there that a man is better suited for a role. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be racist here, but please ensure that you are, weighing the pros and cons of that job. What is the requirement and commitment? Will you be able to fit into that role, keeping in mind your family condition? What if, per se, like I was working in Gurgaon, I had a travel distance time of 2 hours one side, and working for 7 hours again 2 hours, so 11 hours of shift. It was practically not possible for me to do it if I had a toddler with me. And if you commit and you're not able to live up to that expectation, in 6 months you'll end up quitting the job and you ruin your resume. Because if you don't mention it on your resume, they'll say, where were you? The question that is going to be asked, that why were you not working for 6 months? If you say the truth that, okay, I had distance issues, another thing the HR says, aapko pehle nahi pata tha aapko distance issues honge. So all these small little details are extremely important during your interview process. I've had an interview where the candidate had actually been into narcotics and drugs and everything. So I asked that personnel that, please tell me about your weakness. So that person actually went ahead and told me that I've been under addiction and I've been taking substances and things like that. So one side of my brain was saying, no, do not hire this person. He's been under the influence of addictions. The other side of my brain said he's been honest. So then my next question to him was, so how did you manage to overcome those addictions, or are you still addicted to it? Because you can figure out with the body language that if the person is still addicted to drugs or anything. The person was being brutally honest. The person manipulated that weakness in such positivity, said that I have been under this anti-drug campaign, or I have just been a teetotaler, I've gone through some treatments and all of that. And I eventually hired him. And that person remained with the organization for 5 odd years. So again, what I'm trying to tell you is, in that interview process, during that interview, you have to be giving out the truth, but giving out in a manner which is again packaged very aptly. Another thing that happens during the interview process is, most of the companies today undergo that medical examination. And if you are trying to conceal any information regarding your medical history, if you have any pre-existing disease for your blood sugar levels or your BP or whatever, you're lining up yourself into trouble. Because eventually the company is going to be bearing your medical expenses, and they don't want to take that additional liability of getting a person who's not well on board and then bearing the expenses for medical treatment. So ensure you are medically fit. I once remember I hired someone who had diabetes, and he just went, and he was like an absolutely good profile, and we remember sending him on walks just to keep his blood sugar level under controls, because there were subsequent tests that were being done. He had gestation diabetes, so it just doesn't move out of your bloodstream so easily, but we at least we try to bring it into manageable levels. So know your health history. Health is wealth, and it's absolutely very important during that interview process as well. Don't be emotional. you can have stress interviews. So while I was taking, so interviews are again very important for perspective. I am aspirants or something. So I remember while I walked into my interview panel room, uh, my director was so I don't want to use a word. He was not very polite to me, and all he was trying to see is how is my reaction going to be. So he was absolutely upfront and take a seat, and he was so loud that a normal person would have got scared and probably would have been so jittery. I just took, I had to calm down on my nerves, and I just sat down, offered me a glass of water. I had that water, and I was absolutely comfortable. So you can have a stress interview. You can have an interviewer putting you through that stress and trying to see how are you going to keep your calm. Situational based questions are very important. I remember I once asked a question. So there's psychometric analysis that's happening in your interview. Okay. So like I once asked a question, that if at all, so I made the candidate a banker. So I said, if you were the banker and you had an employee who was reporting to you, needed finance back home, and you had money, and tomorrow morning you were supposed to give cash back into the account, would you help your employee? Would you give him that extra money and take it back from him next morning? What was I trying to say? Is he honest to the organization, or is he being honest to the employee? Look, by the end of it, you can never say that अच्छा ठीक है मैं उसको आज पैसे दे देता हूँ, वो कल सुबह मुझे वापस कर देगा. You're not being honest to the organization. This is a complete no. Today, a lot of banks do a lot of psychometric assessment. So, are you a team player? Are you do you have anger issues? Do you have temper issues? How is your integrity placed? Do you have trust issues? All of that gets evaluated. So please be very, very careful while you're giving out those answers. Even if you have to, I'm sorry, I'm going to be telling you this is a wrong tip to give. Even if you have to tell the employee, do not go back and say in the interview कि मैं company को, and honestly, don't help the employee. If I was there, I will be more honest to my organization and not help that employee. So yeah, that's that. And what else? Okay, yeah. So another question is, describe yourself in 4 words. 4 words. So they're asking you your 4 qualities. I'm going to actually do a proper session on interview questions, but since I had time and people did not have questions, I'm giving you the possible questions that can be asked. Describe yourself in 4 words. So what is the perspective employer trying to seek here? He's trying to ask you your 4 qualities. So you can say dedication, you can say loyalty, you can say commitment, you can talk about perseverance. So dedication is you're totally in for the job, you're hardworking. Commitment is very, very important. Now, I personally give a lot of emphasis to smart work than hard work. I don't like hiring people जो गधे की तरह सारा दिन काम करते रहते हैं और वो 5 बजे अगर जॉब खत्म हो रही है वो फिर भी 6 बजे तक बैठे रहते हैं. It just shows कि आपका टाइम मैनेजमेंट स्किल्स में बहुत प्रॉब्लम है. So if you're supposed to be there in the organization from 9 to 5, please ensure your work is done at 4:30 and you go and show it to your boss. I have never ever stayed back in office. Never ever, even after 5 minutes, unless it is the need of the organization or some event is coming up which is critical or crucial. But because of poor time management skills, see, the only chance I remember while I was studying organizational behavior and development at college, they used to tell me, if you're not able to manage your time efficiently, that means there is some problem. And in fact, on Instagram yesterday, there was this gentleman who wrote to me that I have issues in managing my time and I'm going to help him out. You need to know where are you investing your time? What are your time wasters? Are you checking in too many emails? Are you wasting too much of your time? Never go and tell that interviewer in an interview that I have time management issues. What is your biggest weakness? I get stressed. I have time management issues. You will be rejected outrightly in less than 2 minutes. So if you have time management issues, please work on them. If you have stress management issues, please work on them. Do some amount of meditation, listen to music, do Reiki treatment, do anything under the sun, but don't go back and say that I get stressed. You cannot harp on weaknesses that go against you in the interview process. So, Rakesh, that's what I have for today. Before we get into another session, of exclusively on doing interview process. So you can go back and ask again if anybody has any questions here. Just have some water.
Well, there are no more questions still yet, ma'am. Would you like to conclude the session?
Yes, I'd like to conclude the session. So thank you so much, everybody who's been a part of the session. If you have any questions, queries, you can write back to me on Instagram. If you have any feedback to share, we'll be more than happy to take it. This was the first session that was being conducted. I'll be coming up with more sessions here, particularly for English language. The next thing that we are going to be talking about is English language and an exhaustive list of interview questions. That's going to be the next up in the series. What should the questions be and what should your ideal answers be? Be prepared with the list of questions, rehearse them well, but like I said, they should not look as if you've just mugged up those answers and you've come and tried to present them there. So thank you so much for your time, all of you who've taken out time for us today, and I wish you have a great evening ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was quite an insightful session and quite an information. And looking forward to your next sessions as well. So here was Miss Rohini Hira Midda with us, and I, Rakesh Tragani, the counseling executive at Career Naksha, signing off for today's session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.